So the business statement is on Harland and Wolff, and I call the Secretary of State, Jonathan Reynolds.
With your permission, Madam Deputy Speaker, I wish to make a statement on the UK shipbuilding firm Harland and Wolff. I'm pleased to inform the House that, subject to approvals, a commercial deal has been reached that will protect jobs, drive investment and secure the future of the workforce. It is a deal that will see Navantia UK, a specialist in shipbuilding, purchasing all of Harland and Wolff's shipyards. As honourable and right honourable members will know, Harland and Wolff is a major employer in Belfast, with additional important yards at Arnish and Methil in Scotland and Appledore in Devon. For more than 150 years, the firm has built famous vessels for notable shipping organisations and companies, including the Royal Navy, the Royal Mail and the White Star Line. This industry-led deal, which we expect to complete shortly, will secure all 4 of Harland and Wolff shipyards, protecting around 1,000 jobs right across the UK. And I hope this announcement will come as some relief, Madam Deputy Speaker, to Harland and Wolff's employees. I realise this has been a deeply worrying time for them and for everyone affected by the continued speculation over the firm's future. I welcome Navantia UK's intention to work closely with the relevant unions and to protect workers' existing terms and conditions. That's important for the hard-working employees and communities who have served the firm over many years. Madam Deputy Speaker, I was first informed that Harland and Wolff was in serious financial difficulty on day one of the new government. Indeed, because the then government had already had open book arrangements with the company, it was clear the firm had significant and unsustainable debts. Now, members will be aware at this point, Harland and Wolff was seeking a government guarantee or a liquidity loan. Had that occurred, it would have meant a significant risk of the British taxpayer losing millions of pounds, without safeguarding any yards, any jobs or any ships. But the possibility of the government doing so, which was much speculated on in the press, I believe was preventing a market-based solution. The former government's inability to make a decision left the yards and the workforce in limbo. And that is why I made clear in my first weeks in this job that no taxpayer guarantee or loan would be provided. And I was dismayed that when I did so, the Conservative Party opposed that, knowing as they did that with a guarantee or loan, they stood a significant risk of losing an eye-watering amount of taxpayers' money. That was deeply irresponsible. Crucially, Madam Deputy Speaker, the deal that has been agreed will secure the delivery of the Ministry of Defence's Fleet Solid Support contract. The Government has worked closely with Navantia UK on the future of the FSS programme. We've agreed the absolute minimum of changes to the contract to ensure its continued delivery. Navantia UK is the prime contractor of the Team Resolute Consortium, who are charged with building 3 logistics support vessels for the Royal Navy. And they will maintain the required portion of UK-only build as part of this deal. It's also worth saying that FSS is a vital component of the UK carrier strike capability, providing munitions, spares and stores. And at a time when strategic alignment with our NATO allies is more critical than ever, the Government fully endorses this deal, which will also see Navantia UK invest significantly on commercial terms into Harland and Wolff shipyards. Anyone familiar with Navantia UK will know the firm boasts strong expertise in naval shipbuilding. I am pleased that thanks to this agreement, it will continue to bring the next generation of technology to its operations here in the UK. Madam Deputy Speaker, this is quite simply a good deal for the Harland and Wolff shipyards. It's a good deal for its employees and it's a good deal for British shipbuilding. It provides the best opportunity to sustain our essential sovereign shipbuilding capacity and capability now and over the long term. And defence is at the heart of this industrial strategy that we have identified, where defence is one of our 8 growth-driving sectors of the UK economy. That industrial strategy is unreservedly and unashamedly pro-business, engaging on complex issues that are currently barriers to growth and investment. And indeed, national security is one of the foundations of our plan for change. Without it, we can't deliver on our milestones to raise living standards across the UK with good, skilled, productive jobs like those at Harland and Wolff. UK shipbuilding alone supports some 42,500 jobs nationwide and adds 2.4 billion to the economy every single year. We recognise how important it is as a vital pillar of our civil and defence industrial base. That's why my department, together with the Ministry of Defence and the National Shipbuilding Office, is doing everything we can to bolster our world-class shipbuilding industry. This includes the significant progress we're making on key procurement programmes. We have a major contract with BAE Systems, which has increased the order from 3 to 8 Type 26 anti-submarine warfare frigates on the Clyde, and a contract with Babcock for 5 Type 31 general-purpose frigates at Rosyth. These projects have already brought significant recapitalisation investment to shipyards throughout the UK. And there are further procurements to be won, ranging from Border Force and local councils to marine import service vessels at HM naval bases. Madam Deputy Speaker, this government is absolutely committed to supporting vibrant, growing and successful shipbuilding and fabrication industries across the country. And I pay tribute to the skilled, diligent workforces who have made these industries what they are today. Thanks to the deal that's been announced, workers in Belfast, Arnish and Methil, Appledore and right across the country can be confident that the government is squarely behind them and that UK shipbuilding is secure. And that together, as a united kingdom, we will lead this sector into a better future. And I hope all workers in all 4 yards are now able to enjoy this Christmas with their families, as they should do. And I commend this statement to the House.
I call the Shadow Minister Andrew Griffith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Secretary of State for advance copy of his statement. The famous yellow gantry of Harland and Wolff stands tall, not only in the skyline of Belfast, but also in the history of our nation. It's difficult to overstate what Harland and Wolff means to people in the communities of Belfast, Appledore, Arnish and Methil. Extended families across the country will welcome today's confirmation that the shipbuilding contract we awarded in government will now proceed. There do, however, remain many unanswered questions which I'd be grateful if the Secretary of State could answer. If he cannot answer at the dispatch box today, I'd be grateful if he or the Defence Secretary would write in the coming days. First, at a time of enormous geopolitical uncertainty, can he confirm there will be no change to the in-service date of the 3 Fleet Solid Support ships, with the first ship entering service as expected in the 4th quarter of 2028? Secondly, what funding or commitment, if any, has been provided by any part of the government to Navantia to secure this finalised deal? And if so, which budget will this be appropriated from? Has he received state aid clearance for this transaction? And if not, could he clarify to us the process by which that will now be obtained? The Secretary of State said in his statement that the department has agreed, quotes, the absolute minimum of changes to the contract. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, the statement itself provides absolutely nothing whatsoever as to what that actually conceals. Can he guarantee, as Navantia promised as part of their original bid for the contract, that no less than 60% of the whole supply chain activity will take place here in the UK? Can he confirm that there are no additional work packages beyond those originally envisaged moving from Belfast or anywhere in the UK to Puerto Real in Cadiz? And above all, will he assure watching workers and families that the final assembly and systems integration, which is where much of the high-value work sits for all 3 of these vital ships, will take place in Belfast rather than in Navantia's parent shipyards in Spain? He'll appreciate, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's sometimes hard, though one tries to, take the Secretary of State at his word after a number of impacts on business over the last few months. But the wider context here, though welcome in respect of this particular contract and these particular defence jobs, is the large-scale uncertainty that our defence companies, contractors, workers and employees face about the timetable for the government to reach defence spending of 2.5%. They don't have the certainty that these Harland and Wolff workers now do this Christmas. Madam Deputy Speaker, we don't really even have a timeline for a timeline as to when that 2.5% will be hit. And we've seen a degree of equivocation on exactly when the Strategic Defence Review will be published. And again, I'd be grateful for the Secretary of State to clarify that, or perhaps for a colleague to write. Madam Deputy Speaker, it is, at the end of the day, action, not words. We welcome this deal for Harland and Wolff. We welcome the certainty it will provide to workers and their families and to the officials and the department for their work on that. But it does, Madam Deputy Speaker, have many questions still to be answered.
The Secretary of State will know I too, having served in his department, paying close attention to the answers. Secretary of State.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, I can agree with the Shadow Secretary of State on the iconic nature of this business and its role in British history and the role of the business in the community, particularly in Belfast, and the esteem at which is held. I do feel he could have, thanked us for cleaning up another mess that they left us behind, though perhaps that is too much to ask. After all, the previous government could have made the kind of decisions to allow the market-based solution with support from government that we have been able to achieve in this way. Specifically to his answers, and I do, by the way, very much welcome the fact that despite those caveats he welcomed this news and recognised this is a substantial good news story for a lot of workers as we go into Christmas for the next few years as well. On the delivery of the Fleet Solid Support contract, the issues the previous government left us may have some material impact, although there is no large foreseen delay to the delivery of the project at this stage. He asked specifically about the support to the business. Now, there is no support going directly from government to the business to subsidise this transaction. There has been amendments to the contract supported by my department and the Ministry of Defence. He asks for the details of that. I will not, because of the commercial sensitivity of it, reveal it in the House, though I'll find if there's a way potentially to share that with him. He asks if it's compliant with the Windsor framework and our commitments as a country under those arrangements. Yes, I'm satisfied with all of that, though I would say, despite the fact we will always respect in those arrangements, we are the UK government and we make decisions for every part of the UK, seeking, of course, the regulatory approvals for that. But I seek no one's permission to be the Secretary of State for Business and Trade across all of the UK. The point he made, I think, again, about additional work packages, there's no additional promises from the UK government around this, though, of course, he will know there is a 30-year supply pipeline for shipbuilding in the UK and many opportunities, particularly in sectors such as energy and maintenance and fabrication and a whole range of functions where we would want, I think, across the House to have a strong, diverse and competitive shipbuilding and maintenance sector. And finally, he asks a little bit of a try-on defence spending and asks for the assurances the sector can have. Well, the biggest assurance I could give him is this. We only ever hit that 2.5% under Labour governments. And so the fact that there is a Labour government, one committed to the defence sector and its role in the UK and the ability to deliver on that, the maximum economic benefits for the UK, as well as that vibrant and important role in defence, yes, that is a commitment of this government and we will continue to deliver on that way to do that.
Business and Trade Select Committee Chair Liam Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, I want to say congratulations to the Secretary of State. This is excellent news for the people of Appledore and indeed for Northern Ireland and for workers across the Harland and Wolff supply chain. He might just want to confirm that, of course, the peril of providing a government guarantee would have been that it could have entailed a huge payout to a US-based hedge fund, which was, of course, the largest creditor for Harland and Wolff. But what I'd like to ask the Secretary of State, Madam Deputy Speaker, is what is happening to the contract value for the FSS deal? It was, I think, priced at about £1.6 billion. Has that contract value now gone up? But then, crucially, what does the Secretary of State envisage for what happens for Harland and Wolff after that enormous contract is safely and soundly delivered?
Secretary of State.
Well, can I thank the Select Committee Chair for his kind words. I am delighted we've been able to secure this future for Harland and Wolff. And his assessment is right. The largest creditor to Harland and Wolff when we took office was Riverstone, a significant US hedge fund. And he is right to say that had we gone ahead with that government guarantee alone, it is likely for no real return to the taxpayer or guarantee of jobs, shipyards or ships being built. That money would have gone to the creditors. Now, actually, I think in the commercial market-based solution that we have been able to broker, all creditors have behaved actually very responsibly, but understandably, if anyone thinks the government will come along and give them free money, they will hold out for that option. And that's why it was so important to make that decision early on in order to secure this far better outcome. In relation to the specific question, I actually should have done it directly to the Shadow Secretary of State. There is no change to the UK-based content of the contract. There have been, as I said in the statement, some changes on commercial terms to the overall value of that contract. That is relatively minor based on the overall value of the contract, however. And when it comes to the future, I can tell him that the deal that we have brokered guarantees not only all 4 yards, but the jobs in the Belfast yard for 3 years and for 2 years in the 3 other yards. And therefore, we have a chance not just for new investment coming into those yards, for the long-term future to be secured, for a pipeline of work and energy and defence contracts, a really vibrant and successful opportunity for the future.
The Liberal Democrat spokesperson, Steve Darling, who has up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And this is an outstanding Christmas present for the 1,000 employees from Devon to the Isle of Lewis who will benefit from this outstanding decision and the deal that's been pulled off by the government. I know in the West Country we have a low-wage economy, so in the Appledore dockyard, not too far from my constituency in Torbay, this will go down extremely well. So congratulations are in order here. This is in sharp contrast to the failure that we saw under the previous Conservative administration, where they failed to implement an industrial strategy, failed to support our shipping industry and failed to grow our economy over many years, and it is utterly shameful the positions they're now taking. The reality is that what I would like to ask the Minister now is, how can you hardwire that long-term support for our shipping industry so we can see growth in this area and supporting industries such as the manufacturing of steel? Yeah. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Extremely grateful to the Honourable Member for his words, and I'm extremely grateful to be able to deliver the outcome he's described for his constituents as a result of this. He is right to say successful UK government policy has to be about more than one-off solutions to specific problems like this. That is why we have adopted that ambitious industrial strategy, one that covers key sectors of the economy, one that delivers exactly what he has asked for: consistency, long-termism, policy that covers every aspect of government rather than just being seen as being led by one department. And when we get this right, we should always remember, when we get this right, good, long-term, effective public policy working hand in hand with the private sector delivers tremendous outcomes for this country. That is what we're seeking, but ultimately any strategy is only as good as the delivery of it, and evidence like the statement today proves this government will deliver.
Emma Lewell-Buck.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today's news is very welcome, and my right honourable friend knows how vital the FSS ships are to our Royal Navy. RFA Fort Victoria, our only remaining solid store support ship, is due to be decommissioned in 2028. Yet even before this rescue deal, new FSS ships weren't due to enter service until 2032. Can he say if there is now any scope at all to accelerate this and close this capability gap?
Well, I'm grateful to my honourable friend for her words and for her expertise and insight on this matter. I understand the point very much that she is making. It's perhaps more one for my colleagues in the Ministry of Defence, but I will ask them to engage with her in the way that she described, though clearly I believe that would be challenging, but I recognise the absence of capability in her ambitions to see that fulfilled.
Mark Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I welcome the government statement today, and in particular the Fleet Solid Support Programme being protected, but I join my right honourable friend on the opposition front bench and say we'll have to wait and see the details, but in principle it sounds very encouraging indeed. Can I congratulate the Secretary of State and all his team and officials for getting this over the line. He mentions world-class shipbuilding in the UK, and also mentions at the dispatch box the national security as the foundation of the plan for change. And on his online statement from his department today, it talked about sovereign capability. But does he accept without steel, ships cannot be built? And I just wonder if he'd like to take this opportunity to say what more can be done in a dangerous world to reduce the reliance on the UK from increasing imports from other countries, Sweden, elsewhere Asia, in order that we can deliver these ships in a time of conflict or war?
Well, I'm grateful to him for his words, and I very much share the aspirations and the points that he is making. He will know that most defence steels are higher end, they're specialised, they tend to actually come from electric arc furnaces, whereas one of the challenges we've inherited is the position of the 2 remaining sites for blast furnaces in the UK. Port Torbay is a situation we've been able to improve, but we couldn't change the direction of the blast furnaces going off before the arc furnace was installed. Scunthorpe is an even more challenging position in terms of what we've inherited, but we are working very closely with the company to try and find the solution to that. I do believe there are real capabilities missing in the UK. A plate mill, for instance, I could see the economic and business case for that. Long-term, the question of DRI in terms of steel production. The steel strategy is part of delivering on that. There's a whole range of horizontal policies, energy prices in particular, that would have to be in a corresponding position to do that. But I think the fact that the UK has such a small steel sector relative to the size of our economy, real outlier in terms of developed nations for that, suggests there is a real evidence base for improving that. And I'll work with any member across the House to try and deliver that.
Richard Baker.
Deputy Speaker, a Merry Christmas. This is a great Christmas for methyl, and can I thank the Secretary of State, the Secretary of State for Scotland, and all those in government who worked so hard to secure this announcement today, which has saved 200 skilled jobs and apprenticeships at the methyl yard in my constituency and 150 jobs at Arnish in the constituency of my honourable friend, the member for the Western Isles. Does he agree that's now vital all levels of government, trade unions and all stakeholders in the future of the methyl yard continue to work together so that with GB Energy headquartered in Scotland, the yard can fulfil its huge potential to contribute to our ambitions for growth in the renewables industry in Scotland and in the UK?
Secretary of State.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I thank my honourable friend for all of his support and repeated submissions to the department, because I know how significant this is for his community, and he, I believe, has done exactly the role of a Member of Parliament in articulating that at every level of government. And I would say the same for our honourable friend from Helen Yard, where I was able actually to visit the Arnish shipyard during part of the election campaign. It's so important, I think, in a department like mine, in a job like mine, to recognise that you have to deliver for all of the United Kingdom, and the diverse challenges we have don't detract from the fact that we have to make sure we're delivering for every part of the UK, and that's what we plan to do. I also thank him very much for his comments about my officials who worked very hard in order to deliver this outcome, and I agree with him on the huge potential that is out there in terms of not just shipbuilding, fabrication, maintenance, particularly energy. There's real optimism for the future, but it requires the kind of foundations we've put in place with this agreement.
Sir Bernard Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I add my congratulations to the government for getting this over the line, and but can I also ask, when are we going to actually get the defence industrial strategy out of the government? Because we've so far only had a rather lengthy statement of intent. At a time when we do need to re-industrialise our defence industrial base in order to face modern challenges. And this is particularly essential given the threats we're facing from the east of Europe at this present time. And can I just say how difficult this is in government, because the Treasury hates this stuff, if he hasn't already discovered that, but we will hold him to account for, as he describes, leading this sector into the future, to future growth, and indeed reindustrialising our steel industrial base and everything in order that we can have that self-sufficiency that's vital to the defence of the country.
Encourage the Secretary of State to be brave when responding on the point on the Treasury.
Absolutely. I very much welcome the question, and would like to put on the record I have only good things to say about Her Majesty's Treasury at all times. That's true, I mean that. He is absolutely right to say that the imperative is very great, particularly a degree of responsibility on the defence part of the industrial strategy because of the challenges that we face. I think it's imperative not just to work very closely with colleagues in the Ministry of Defence around procurement issues and government-to-government sales, of which my department play a major role, but also in terms of some of the wider regulatory issues. The honourable gentleman might know we recently did some work in the department around ESG criteria and making sure we're not seeing those prevent investment into defence companies. There are issues with SMEs in the defence sector, sometimes struggling to access things like bank accounts, not through a sort of prohibition on defence, but because of perhaps a lack of understanding. The commercial contracts are different, perhaps to other parts of the economy. So there's a whole range of issues we have to get right. But I think across the House, in the main, we would share the aspirations and objectives the honourable gentleman has. I know it's been something he's been a voice of expertise and authority on these issues in all the time I've been in Parliament. I'm grateful for his engagement in these matters.
Amanda Martin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today's announcements will surely be well received across the House, the country, the Royal Navy and for those workers directly affected, especially after the lack of industrial strategy from the previous government. Madam Deputy Speaker, alongside the fantastic announcement for seafarers, workers, conditions and protections, it shows this government's commitment to this vital maritime and industrial sector. Shipbuilding, Madam Deputy Speaker, was once a proud industry and a backbone of my community in the city of Portsmouth, and it was decimated by the previous government. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, can I ask the Minister what assessment the Minister has made of the wider implications and potential for the UK economy of this deal, specifically for the future of shipbuilding and the defence sector in this country?
Secretary of State.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend, and I recognise the contribution and the role shipbuilding has played in her city where I grew up in Sunderland. It's another part of what once was one of the major civil shipbuilding locations in the world, and I recognise the identity and the pride that comes with that industrial heritage, which in many cases people feel is something of the past. But what we are stressing with this statement is exactly what she has said about the contemporary contribution and the opportunities for the future, which we should be excited about. And there are a whole range of increasing needs for shipbuilding expertise, particularly when we look at, as mentioned, the energy sector previously. Offshore wind, for instance, creates a whole range of demand for different types of vessels, maintenance, supply. So this should be an optimistic story for the future. Sometimes I feel that the wider British public don't perhaps still understand the number of jobs the economic benefit comes from a sector like this. So it's always good to have the opportunity, the dispatch box, to make the case for that, as she does every day coming from where she does.
Member John Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I congratulate the front bench team here and the wider government for landing this deal in the face of what the Secretary of State has euphemistically called headwinds. I call them a full force gale created by the budget. I wonder if Navanta did raise any concerns about the forthcoming Employment Rights Bill, which swings the pendulum very much in favour of trade unions, as we know, very often read in tooth and claw. Was that an issue in landing this deal?
No, it was not, and it's a good try, but no. I mean, first of all, let's recognise that the employment rights framework in most parts of continental Europe is very different to our own. Second of all, let's recognise that the changes in the Employment Rights Bill, again, as I repeatedly say, raise terms and conditions for some of the lowest paid workers in the country, yes, but to a level where many companies in the UK, particularly larger companies, already operate to a level significantly above that. Shipbuilding is historically a fairly unionised sector, so I don't think there are any concerns or worries in that field. In fact, often, to be frank, the trade unions in a sector like shipbuilding fought harder for the industry than former Conservative governments. So I would say, in the main, I understand the point and the try-on point that he's raising, but no, it hasn't been a problem. It has actually been, I think, in terms of wider UK government policy, a great endorsement of our EU reset and our willingness not to revisit the arguments of Brexit, but to work more closely with friends and allies in Europe to make sure we're getting the maximum opportunities for the UK and working always in our national interest.
Mark Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I start by congratulating the government on this announcement? It is incredibly welcome news for all of those workers who now get to keep their jobs as a result. I do think it's a shame that the Conservative front bench chose to attack the government over the 2.5% target in the middle of this statement, and they asked for a timeline on when we're going to deliver 2.5%. Well, 14 years is a timeline, and you didn't meet it. They didn't meet it even once. So can I ask my right honourable friend to make it clear how, if we're going to avoid situations like this in the future, we need to have a modern industrial strategy, and can I ask him about the progress we've made towards that? And can I also ask him how it feeds into our wider growth mission and how it will support the UK economy to grow over the next Parliament?
I'm extremely grateful to him for his comments on the deal and his observations on the 2.5% questions from the opposition front bench. I would say on the modern industrial strategy we are creating, we've had an incredible response to the Green Paper that we published. I think some 22,000 individual answers to the questions that Green Paper submitted, showing there's a huge appetite from industry across the board in the UK and abroad to engage in what the government is seeking to do, which I again would always stress must be and should be on a cross-party basis. There's nothing in there that anyone of any political stripe should be able to oppose. It's based on our national interest in being more competitive, more business friendly, succeeding to a greater degree on the world stage. We had our first meeting this week of the Industrial Strategy Council, some tremendous representatives of UK industry, academics, business figures, expertise across the board. It's an incredibly exciting time. It's just one component of our growth mission, clearly an important one alongside areas of work for me, such as the small business plan that we're putting together as well. But it's something that everyone, I genuinely believe, should be incredibly excited about the future.
Select Committee Member Alison Griffiths.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'm sure you will have noticed that the Secretary of State didn't answer one question previously, which was to provide clarity that the final assembly and systems integration will take place in Belfast rather than in the Navantia shipyards in Spain.
Sorry if she missed that, but I was clear there's no change to those provisions, to what we have announced today. The provisions that were in the original contract agreed by the former Conservative government have not changed. What has changed is we've saved all 4 of these yards at a time where we could have lost them all through the inability of the previous government to take the kind of action required. So it's an incredibly positive story. We have saved the yards, saved the position of it, and guaranteed those jobs, not for months, but for years to come. It's great.
Chris Law.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to wish a Merry Christmas at this opportunity. I'd also like to thank very much the Secretary of State for what's wonderful news, frankly, for all 4 sites across the UK. But you're obviously going to be slightly biased to 2 in particular in Scotland, one in our nation, Isla Lewis, and the other, of course, in Methil Fife. It's very warm news indeed the week before Christmas. I'd also like to thank the cooperation that's gone between this government and the Scottish Government over the last months, and in particular the early days when UK Labour came into government, and also like to put on record the work that the Deputy First Minister of Scotland, Kate Forbes, has done in contributing. I've got a couple of questions really. One is, given we're moving forward, are the terms and conditions that the workers are currently on, are they going to continue as they are the same? And I've listened to about future contracts, and we know that for the next 2 years both yards in Scotland will be protected. Can you tell us a little bit more about the longer-term sustainable footing, not least because this company's changed hands 3 times in the last 4 years? Thank you.
Secretary of State.
I'm extremely grateful to him for his observations and questions. It was really important to us to keep all 4 yards together. There was, I think, an assessment that commercially that the Belfast yard, for understandable reasons, is more commercially valuable. So there was a real chance that any unstructured rescue package could have, frankly, lost the 2 Scottish yards in particular, where there would have been question marks. So keeping the business together, keeping the future of those workers was hugely important to us, and I'm delighted that's what we've been able to achieve. The job guarantees for the non-Belfast yards last for 2 years. It's for 90% of the overall job numbers, simply to provide the usual degree of flexibility in terms of running that business, but that covers the majority of the workforce and keeps them in place. And it comes with investment into those Scottish yards. So whatever the future holds, those yards will be even more able, more competitive in future, more able to provide and bid for the kind of contracts that would secure the long-term prosperity that we're all seeking. And I'm always genuinely willing to work with colleagues across any part of the UK to secure the kind of outcome that we've achieved today, and I'm grateful to recognising that.
Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As someone who has consistently and regularly called for more shipbuilding to take place in the UK rather than be exported, it's good news today, and I congratulate the Minister for announcing the decision. Can he say a bit about, he's clearly said that there are further orders that have been added to as a result of this deal. What opportunities are there for further defence and, much more important, commercial opportunities for Harland and Wolff than to acquire contracts from across the world rather than building elsewhere?
Secretary of State.
Well, I thank him again for that point, and I share his aspirations and recognise his calls for UK shipbuilding to be something that has a higher priority in the past and into the future. Just to be specific on what I was saying in the statement, so there's been a revision to the value of the Fleet Solid Support contract. It's required a little bit of additional support, but not greatly and on commercial terms in order to deliver it, but there's not promises of additional work packages on top of the contractual agreements agreed by the previous government. But of course, because Navantia UK is such a world-renowned expert builder of shipping of all sizes, the investment that comes with this deal, the more competitive nature of the yards in future, I think are the genuine grounds for optimism. I see both in fabrication, maintenance, but also particularly in energy, real opportunities. I also think a little bit of competitive diversification in the supply chain in the military shipbuilding sector is welcome in terms of better value for money and procurement in future. So I think across the board, of course, this is a positive story for Harland and Wolff and its employees, but it is, as he describes, a positive story for UK shipbuilding too.
Final question, Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I say really good news, Secretary of State, and anybody across this whole of the House will welcome it. I think it probably is time to break out the Christmas cake and the mince pies early, because there's good news coming, and the Minister, the Secretary of State has delivered that today. This morning I spoke to my colleague, the Right Honourable Member for East Belfast, who has worked tirelessly with the company to secure this progress. We all agree that it is great news, in particular for the 1,000 strong workforce in Belfast, especially in the mouth of Christmas. That is really good news, and well done. My colleague for East Belfast will actually be at the yard with the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland this afternoon, indeed probably in about an hour's time, I understand it will be. If the National Shipbuilding Strategy is to mean anything, it is that government invests in skills and capacity throughout the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Does the Secretary of State agree that more could be done to increase research and innovation support across the United Kingdom, and in particular for Northern Ireland? Thanks so much.
I'm extremely grateful to him, I think, for getting the last question to me of the year, but I would like to particularly recognise what he said about his colleague from East Belfast, who obviously with a constituency interest and a leading role in Northern Ireland, is someone who I think understood the decisions we had to make, and we had to explain them in confidence to all colleagues affected in terms of why the initial decision on the guarantee alone wasn't the right way forward, but we were committed to the kind of solution that we have today, and I'm extremely grateful for being able to work with him on that. Great news that he is going to the yard today. My colleague, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, and the Minister for Industry are actually going to be in Belfast today, and the Secretary of State for Scotland will be at one of the yards, I understand, in Scotland too. And on his point on R&D and innovation, yes, that's the basis by which we have to compete, whether it's aerospace, whether it's automotive, whether it's shipbuilding. It's high-end, sophisticated R&D, innovation, world-leading products. That's what we've got to get to, which we have in many of our advanced manufacturing sectors, but it's such a competitive world. We've got to maintain that edge, and I think particularly R&D is an area where co-support, co-funding between government and industry has real benefits. We've seen that in lots of sectors, maybe not to the degree we've needed in shipbuilding, but let's look at that for the future and approach the next year with some real positivity.
Well, that concludes the Harland and Wolff statement. I'll give the front bench a few moments to shuffle over.